Normally, I am born in an Islamic family. So everything starts with, in the name of God, the compassionate and the merciful. Although we see little of compassion and mercy in human beings these days. The Arabic version of what I said now in English is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is. Now there is also a beautiful Sanskrit sloka which is used whenever there is a dialogue. Now this sloka is very important because before somebody goes to study a Sanskrit text, it has been chanted for maybe 1,000 years or more, 2,000 years at a conservative estimate. It is Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastuma Vidvishavahai. This is the sloka. Sahana Bhavatu means, may both of us be protected. You may interpret it as may he protect both of us, but if you write it in Sanskrit, Saha means two. You can't have a dialogue with one. It's a monologue. So Saha means two. So Sahana Bhavatu means two. Now in the Islamic context, this has also another meaning. Saha means two, meaning the Rabb and the Abd, which means the spark and the central fire. Let me put it this way. Most often, also in religion, what happens is the search for God, or the search for the truth, or the search for one's inner connection with the divine, sometimes is put on the back burner, and the questions of power come about, which is when religion is used for political purposes. It is called the politics of religion. It's a very important term to remember. If you want to deeply go into the teachings of religion, then keep politics aside for a while. When you have touched a situation where you understand this, then you can translate it into political action. Not before that. It shouldn't get all mixed up. So, Sahana Bhavatu, may both of us be protected, which means you and I. These days, one needs to be protected, I suppose. Especially a man like me, who is born in an Islamic family. When I went first time to Dubai for a talk on deeper aspects of Hinduism, they told me, don't go. Don't go. You might be shot. I said, I'm going anyway, because this is not in any human being's hands to end one's life. Everybody has a span. When it comes, nobody can stop it. In fact, a great saint, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa in India, used to say that God laughs heartily twice. One is when the doctor tells the patient, I will surely save you, you will not die. And the second is when two brothers go onto the field, measure the land with a tape and say, this belongs to you and this belongs to me. This is the situation. The world belongs to nobody. It belongs to the divine. We have divided it. So the attempt should be to bring it together and not to keep dividing, unless they become such small bits that they are unrecognizable. So may both of us be protected. Sahano Bhunaktu, may both of us be nourished. Nourishment is important. Not only physical nourishment, but also spiritual, emotional, psychological, all these nourishment. The definition, the latest definition of health, according to the WHO, it is not merely being without a disease. It is to be the sense of well-being. If that is not there, even if you don't have a disease, there is no problem. I see people who come to me and say, I'm perfectly healthy. So what's your problem? But I can't sleep. Why? Problems. In fact, the uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. So the more crowns you wear, the more uneasy it is to sleep. So the maximum selling drugs today in India, and over the world, why India, are sleeping tablets. People get so stressed up. The other is, of course, if there is some medicine which can make you young. Sahano Bhunaktu, may both of us be nourished. Saha Viryam Karavavai, may the energies, virya, vitality in us increase. Tejasvina Vaditamastu, may the tejas or the shining forth of goodness increase in us. Then the last one, Ma Vidvishavahai, may we not fight with each other. This is we especially said when there is a dialogue, but a dialogue is not your proving your point and my trying to prove my point. It's working together to find the solution. This is a dialogue. So, Ma Vidvishavahai is a very important part of this statement. Now, having said this is a Dara Shikoh conference. So, why am I here to talk about this? Because Dara Shikoh represents in a way, we'll leave out his political aspects and all that. Maybe he wanted to be king, maybe he didn't, we don't know. From the point of spiritual and religious experience, which I think is very basic in bringing people together, he was a person who was not satisfied merely with his own little point of view. He appreciated looking at others. He wanted great yogis to come and talk to him. He expanded his horizons. One can't say that he was an apostate or not an apostate because these are very tricky questions. You know, in Islamic jurisprudence, there's a lot of hair-splitting arguments, so it's difficult to come to a conclusion on this. But the fact is that here he was, a prince who perhaps would have become the emperor, may have, who was from his childhood. In fact, someone was quoting today that one of the charges leveled against him was that he was all the time in the company of lunatics. Now, this question of being a lunatic, again, is there in all world traditions. In India, we have a set of people who are called avadutas, who have broken through all the ordinary ways of living and they live as they like. Sometimes they don't even wear clothes. I'm not saying we should imitate them. Imitation is not the original, please. So one would say from the ordinary, what you call logical point of view, that she was a lunatic or somebody was a lunatic. But the fact is, they see us as lunatics. They think that why are these fellows going around with these power games and trying to make better of each other? You know, this tradition. So the dividing line between a real spiritual state, which in Sufi terminology is very often called hal, where one's reason for some time is left alone because reason is so limited. I'll connect it with other traditions. Reason, what we call our logic. I'm not saying we should, if I don't have logic, I can't talk to you. That's a different story. The thing is that primary importance, which means to think that our reason can solve all problems, according to the higher teachings of all religions, is a flaw. It's not a complete understanding of the facts. The Upanishads. Why Upanishads? We have to refer to the Upanishads because it is a body of literature so deep in philosophical understanding and spiritual roots of this country, which the world would not have known existed except for Dara Shikoh. Dara Shikoh translated the Upanishads for the first time in Persian, and it was then that it was taken to Greece, and the Western world, Greece was then considered to be what you call the headquarters of intellectual understanding. The Greeks understood, and they Dupont translated it into what is called the Upanikhat in Greek. When the Western world saw this, they said, oh my God, we thought these were savages walking around with loincloths. There's so much wisdom in here. All our impressions that are gathered by the brain, all the data, let's put it in computer language, collected is through these five senses. Now, we all know that these five senses are very limited in their reach. Even what the senses say, we cannot believe. How? Every morning we see the sun rise, and every morning we see the sun set. Even a high school child will tell you, student will tell you, that the sun neither rises nor sets. The world is moving, earth is moving. But you see it. So can you trust your senses? You cannot. I'm not saying all senses cannot. I am saying they are very indefinite. They are not absolute. They are imperfect. So all the data that the brain gathers is from these imperfect senses. So which is why all great beings have said simplicity is an important part of life. Now, before stopping, I will quote. When the Prophet, who at that time when Islam had developed so much that he could ask for any luxury, unlike the Mughals and the rulers who were there, who lived in abject luxury all the time, he could have asked for it. But abject, I use the word deliberately. He could have asked for it, but he said that he stitched his own clothes and wore them. And when people asked him, why this fakiri? In the middle of all, you can command anything. He said, al-fakaru fakiri. Poverty is my pride.
Neither of us is going to intervene between the audience and the extremely learned speaker. But I just want to tell him that as far as our own tradition is concerned in Kashmir, it's always been inclusive. And you know, our great poet Lal Ded, you know, one of her verses which is familiar to all Kashmiris is Shiv Chui Thali Thali Rauzan Mauzan Hyund to Musalman Trukai Chuk Panun Pan Praznao Soiche Sahibas Zani Zan. Yes, I'll have to know, because it's meant for you actually. These people know it already. It means that Shiva is everywhere, and you must know him as the sun, which shines on everybody, doesn't discriminate, nothing. Therefore, don't discriminate between a Hindu and a Muslim. If you are wise, if you are a Trikite, you know, somebody who is learned in the essential principles of Shaivism, if you are a Trikite, know yourself first. That is the way to know the Sahib. And she deliberately uses the word Sahib instead of Shiva again. So she combines Shiva and Sahib together. So this is the kind of air we have breathed all the time. And most of our mystic poets have had a kind of a dialogue constantly. They are not prescriptive. They suggest something, then they leave it open and they expect people to answer. And sometimes we see Lal Ded engaging in a dialogue with herself to clarify things. Sometimes she says, I asked the Guru, why is this breath hot? And why is this breath cold? I waited for an answer, he didn't give it to me. Then I realized that the Nabhistan, the solar plexus, is a hot place. So when it rises from here, breath is hot.
Beautiful thing. It's a very practical.
Extremely, because her yogic practices were practical. Lal Ded chose to speak of these abstruse Shaivik principles and everything to people in their own language.
I can't resist telling you one very little story which completes what Shri M was telling us, and that is about seeing God in everyone. And this is a little story about a person who goes to his guru and says, please can you teach me some wisdom? And so he says, well, it's very easy. You just have to see God in everybody. So he said, is it that easy? He says, yeah, it's really easy. You have to see God in all, respect all, and the world is going to be fine. So he goes back feeling quite elated, and he's walking down the road and he sees an elephant coming. And he says, oh, wonderful, I see God, and I see I'm God, and he's God. And so I don't have to fear him. And then the Mahout shouts, get out of the way, hato yahan se, hato. So he says, why should I hato? I'm God, he's God. And of course, when he comes too close, the elephant just lifts him up and throws him into the mud. And he's in a state of shock, and he thinks, what is this guru teaching me? And he goes back in all disheveled, and he tells the guru, what is this, what you're teaching me? I saw God. And He says, but why didn't you listen to the Mahout? He's also God.